Fussy eating in toddlers can be really difficult. And so I want to talk about a few ways that you might start changing the way meal times go so that they're less stressful for you and your child. So when we're talking about toddler eating, really what we're talking about is you either trying to change your child, what they eat, how much they eat, where they eat, when they eat, whatever that may be, or changing yourself. And if you've got a toddler, you ain't going to be changing your toddler. And so we're going to talk today about things that you as a parent can do that will help you with meal times. So one of the first things to realize is that actually fussy eating is totally normal in children, and it's there for an important reason to do with safety, particularly with their preference to sweet and bitter foods. So that children are really attracted to sweet foods, and they reject bitter foods. So we're talking about sweet foods like fruits, most children like, and bitter foods like broccoli, a lot of children don't like. And it's because of safety, because bitter foods can often, or were often, poisonous in the wild. And so the first thing that we can do when we are feeding our children is to provide them with a range of healthy options that you're happy for them to eat. And then you let them decide which of those foods that they eat and how much of it they eat. And when they eat, really, because, if they're not hungry, it's not really fair to force them to eat. So providing them with a range of foods, ideally, if you've got a little bit of an older toddler, in self-serve format, like a buffet style, where each different food is in a bowl for them to help themselves to, can really go a long way to developing independence, but also making your toddler feel like they're in control of their own eating. And then letting them serve themselves, letting them choose what they would like on the table. If they don't go for the broccoli, that's okay. They may not like broccoli, and really we don't eat what we don't like, but also it might just be that it's not a familiar food to them. If you keep putting it out on the table and they see you eat it, they see it a lot, it becomes familiar to them, and eventually they may start trying it. But if you keep hiding it by pureeing it into sauces, etc., they're never going to know that they like broccoli. And so it's really important to have that food out there that for them to see, smell, taste, squash, whatever they want to do with it. So the first thing is putting out lots of different foods, but letting your toddler decide when they're hungry, when they're full, so when they want to stop, and what they want to eat out of what you've provided. Another really important thing that you can do is to make sure that you always include safe foods. And by that I mean foods you know that your toddler likes and you know that they will eat. It might be potatoes, for example, roast potatoes. It might be bread, it might be spaghetti, it might be yogurt or fruit. Whatever it is that you know that they really like, make sure that you always include something that they like in your meal. So it just could be that you have a pot of yogurt or a piece of fruit on the table as part of the meal. And if that's what they want to eat out of the meal, then just let them eat that. That really takes a lot of stress out of meal times, and it makes children feel like actually they're, again, in control of what they're eating. And this is really beneficial for when they're older and they need to be listening to their bodies and their appetites and trying to get away from emotional eating. And then when we're talking about emotional eating, another thing that you could do is completely forget about any sort of praise for eating or any sort of commentary. If you want to comment on what they're eating, use a say what you see approach. So you can just say, oh, you're putting that carrot in your mouth, or oh, you've taken a bite of broccoli, but without adding the value judgments of, oh, good boy, or oh, you're such a clever girl for eating all your vegetables, or you can't have a treat or pudding until you've eaten your vegetables. All of those things are creating an emotional bond to eating, which we really want to avoid if you want your child to have a healthy relationship with food. So the three things you can do is put the food out buffet style and let your child choose what they want. Make sure that you put safe foods out for every meal. That means foods that they really like to eat, so you know that they're going to be eating. And let go of the commentary and the praise around eating. You get on with your own meal, let your child get on with theirs. And you know, the worst that can happen is that an hour later they're hungry and they can have a snack. And that's actually something really important just to mention right at the end there, is that the World Health Organization and UNICEF both recommend that children under the age of 3 eat about 5 to 6 meals a day. Toddlers are grazers. They like to eat little and often. And so expecting them to sit down and eat 3 big meals is maybe not realistic. And if they don't eat the meal that you've given them, they can always have something a little later. So hopefully that those 3 tips will really help you to make mealtimes a little less stressful with your toddler.